Montreal.
Around the world.
Can you hear me out there?
The Jeremy White Podcast.
With Bustan. For the best Lebanese cuisine in Montreal, it's got to be Bustan. Visit bustan.ca.
Now, the Jeremy White Podcast.
What you're hearing in the background is not a sound effect. It's actual crickets.
That's right.
Because, first of all, it's the first podcast episode, and we're in Mitch's backyard.
Yeah.
Not where I was expecting to record the first podcast, but here we are.
Here we are. So how does it feel to finally get into podcasting?
I don't know, man. It's weird. This is weird.
So, okay. So you do the radio show in Montreal. How do you sort of see this as being different in terms of content?
I don't know. I mean, on the radio, I'm just so confined to time and what I'm allowed to talk about and what I can say and what I can't and the duration of it. So, I don't know. I guess this podcast is just going to be kind of an outlet for me to talk, It's kind of like what we're doing now.
All right, so let's
we are in your backyard and we're recording the first podcast. By the way, thanks a lot to Bustan for getting on board and sponsoring the show. Everyone's asking me, wow, how much money are you making from Bustan? I'm like, dude, they pay me. They pay me well in like really good garlic sauce and chicken, so and lots of garlicky potatoes.
I need a Bustan sponsorship for the Rock Talk thingy.
Well, we're going to try and get some, maybe we'll get you some gift cards and stuff.
But let's talk format. So,
okay, by the way, this is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon, host Mitch Lafon.
Yeah, it's
available.
Mitch Lafon's Mitch Lafon.
It's Mitch Lafon's Mitch Lafon. Exactly.
But okay, so the format. I mean, obviously, radio. You have to play the music that needs to be played. You have to say what needs to be said, and you got the traffic and the weather and so. Format-wise, are you eclectic, or are you going to be a rock show? Or are you going to be a talk show? What are you going to be?
That's the thing, because everybody always asks me, like, in the last, because I've been working on this podcast for like 2 years, right?
Right.
Whether I was going to be doing it with the radio station involved or not, and like now I'm entirely independent, so it's like I have total creative control over pretty much like everything possible.
Right.
As far as like content goes, like everybody always asks me, oh, so what's your topic going to be? What's the podcast going to be on? But I don't necessarily have it. Like, I don't have any constraints to hold me back. So I can basically do whatever I want. So if I want to talk to this hip hop artist, I can talk to them. If I want to talk to a chief in my community, I can talk to them. It's more, right. It's. I think it's just going to be a place for me to go and talk about things that I want to, that I just don't have the opportunity to do on the radio.
So basically, the stuff you find fascinating.
Yes.
So if you find it fascinating, then hopefully the listener will find it fascinating and then want to engage and be part of it, which makes sense.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's almost like it's going to be a podcast for me, and hopefully others find it interesting.
Do you think you'll be covering nature topics? Because you've got crickets and barking dogs.
You hear the actual crickets in the background.
And the barking dogs.
The sound of the crickets is actually nobody listening is what it is.
Well, it's because it's the first one, and so you don't have listeners yet. So we need to get rid of the crickets and move on to loud audiences.
But it's kind of nice being actually outside and like being with somebody to, instead of, we were talking about having you kind of co-host the first episode and hop on through Zoom or Skype or whatever, but then why don't we just get together? It's not like we go anywhere. Like I'm COVID free, you're COVID free.
Yes, and we actually are about 7 or 8 feet apart right now.
Yeah, you're on the other side of your deck and we have really long mic wires.
Yes.
And I talk really loud.
Yes. So all right. So talk to me about some of the guests. Like you got this first one, Steve Stevens, coming up from Billy Idol's band. First of all, how do you meet Steve? How do you get him on board? What's the fascination with Steve Stevens?
Well, it's funny because you're the one that introduced me to Steve.
Yes.
Last summer we went to see Bryan Adams and Billy Idol, and
what a great bill.
Yeah, we went deliver him cheesecake backstage, which was kind of bizarre.
Joe's cheesecake.
Yeah, and shout out to Joe in Syracuse. He's still doing the cheesecake.
Doing the cheesecake.
Still doing it? Come on, Max. Oh, now the dog's in my face.
Zini's still doing the cheesecake.
Yeah, so we went deliver cheesecake to him, and there we go. There goes the dog. You were like, hey, do you want to go deliver cheesecake to Steve Stevens and Billy Idol? I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we went backstage. We ran into Steve and his lovely wife Josie. She's an absolute doll, and we were just hanging out, talking for a little bit. I followed him on Instagram. He followed me back, and we kind of developed this little relationship of liking each other's stuff.
Right.
So when
he's a cool dude. He's an average, down to earth, cool dude.
You know what's funny? I didn't grow up with him, knowing about him from Billy Idol. I grew up watching Married to Rock or whatever that show's called on VH1. Remember Bret Michaels had Rock of Love?
Yes. Oh, I do.
And
on tour, he had a Rock of Love tour bus.
Yes, exactly. And so there was that show, and then there was the Married to Rock, and it had Steve Stevens on it, and so that's how I knew him and his wife. So
he's a reality star for you.
Pretty much, yeah. But then I discovered
what is it, Jersey Girl? No, what was that other one? The Jersey Shore? Whatever.
Jersey Shore, yeah. He was my Jersey Shore, but rock Jersey Shore, So then I started discovering, through the music, and after I met him last year, I started listening to those two first Billy Idol albums a lot.
Great albums.
And so I said, when I get this podcast going, it'd be great to have somebody like him who's a legend, who's a name, who's just an icon from the 80s. I mean, the guy's won Grammys, he's played with Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. So, I also, actually in the interview, we didn't really touch on the Michael Jackson stuff, whatever. We really did talk mostly about the first two Billy Idol albums and the influence that it had on a lot of the 80s production and stuff that came after it. So
let me take you back real quick to that night in Syracuse. What stands out for me, other than delivering cheesecake to Billy Idol's band, was the fact that we were interviewing Mickey Curry of Bryan Adams' band, and we heard Bryan Adams warming up, by playing "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These," the Eurythmic song,
or the Marilyn Manson song.
Right. Well, in our different age groups, for you, Marilyn Manson, for me, Eurythmics. I saw the original. It was in black and white. It was great. But he was warming up doing that song acoustically. Wasn't that the trippy moment? You just hear Bryan Adams' voice coming through the wall, and it's like...
Well, it was kind of funny. You're sitting there interviewing Mickey Curry, and, we're talking about stuff, and you just hear through the wall, that raspy Bryan Adams voice. Yeah. And, I think he was playing bass. Yeah. It was just him and a bass, I think.
Well, he played bass in the band for a while. There was a point where Bryan Adams went out as a three-piece.
Right.
And I don't know what had happened to the other guy.
That was the early 2000s or something, right? Or late 90s?
Yeah, no, 2004, 2005-ish. Yeah. And I don't know why the bass player disappeared. I don't know if he was sick or getting married or had a kid or budget cuts. Could be. Diminishing returns at that time.
Well, yeah.
But...
the dog's chasing a squirrel now. I wish you could see this.
Yeah, listen, this is... Welcome to the Nature Show.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast. See, this is another thing. On the radio, I would right now be in my boss's office, and he'd be listening to this saying, "Oh, you completely went off topic, and you just totally went and just went off the rails. So you need to try and stay on topic." Whereas, now on the podcast, we could talk about little things like that,
Yeah, and I think that's what makes podcasting endearing. Well, no, but it also makes it endearing because there is some format. I mean, a non-format is a format in the sense where you're talking about anything.
Yeah.
That's the show. The show is talking about anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that becomes the format.
It's like Seinfeld, the show about nothing.
Right. But you've got rock stars, and do we want to talk about the second guest at this point, or?
No, we're going to save that for the next episode, but...
Right, but the second guest, I mean, without mentioning names... We got to hold a Grammy.
We got to hold his actual physical Grammy. So that's pretty cool.
Come on, holding a Grammy.
Yeah.
I could think of some washed up 80s hair bands that have never held a Grammy.
I can think of a lot of sad little pumpkins that wish they could get their hands on a Grammy.
Oh, the sad little pumpkins.
But unfortunately, at the local bowling alley, they're not handing out Grammys. But yeah, go back to talking about the Bryan Adams thing, just being there backstage and stuff. And these are little stories that I don't get to necessarily tell on the radio because, hey, it's not our format. You can't really talk about those things. But I have so many really fun stories that people, when I do meet them in person, they find interesting. And you and we have so many different experiences that we've been through.
Well, talk about your first Bryan Adams interview. I mean, we're backstage in a dimly lit room. It was horrible. Bryan walks in and he looks at the room and he goes, "This is horrible."
Yeah. You know how that Bryan Adams interview happened? So I was about to go on the air. It was a Friday afternoon. And I think the show was Saturday. It was the next day.
Yeah, it was a Saturday the next day.
So I was on the air doing the Friday Party Jam. And my program director called me at just before 5 o'clock. He never calls me. It's very rare.
Only to yell at you.
Yeah, only to yell at me. I love you, Paul. So he says to me, he's like, hey, so by the way, this is my impression of my program director, and he hates it, but I don't care because it's actually sounds just like him.
So it's my podcast, and I'll do what I want.
Exactly. So he says to me, he's like, hey, Jeremy, so listen, tomorrow, how would you like to interview Bryan Adams? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, he's Universal. They approached us, and they know you're a big fan. And I said, sure, yeah, I bet he'd love to do it. So tomorrow, 5 o'clock, be at the Bell Center.
Be at the Bell Center.
I'm like, you got it.
And you're banned from doing interviews right now.
I'm banned from doing interviews?
Aren't you? Not with Bryan Adams, but in general.
No. I'm not banned from doing interviews. It's more like,
we have better people like the clown guy or whatever.
Well, I think at one like for the festivals and stuff, I think they wanted just like a little bit more personalities. Because when I talk to the artists, I like to actually talk to them as artists. Whereas, at the radio station, they look for entertainment. It's an entertainment platform. So, I guess it does make more sense to have the morning show stuntman to go and do an interview and get a little bit more entertainment for the morning show, which makes total sense to me, and I'm totally cool with that, But
there's
now
no time to drink backstage anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now I'm kind of like the only one with a home studio and the ability to record interviews, so which is another one of the reasons why I did that for this podcast and everything. So anyway, so we went to the Bell Center, me and Henry, our web guy at the time at the Beat. And we set up.
At the time, he's no longer there?
No, he's not there anymore. He's gone work for like another marketing company or something. He was working with Unibrew, like the beer, the Dave Mustaine beer and all that.
Better than Unibrow.
That too, yeah. So we went and set up at that little. How would you describe that room? It's like a green room, right? For like, I think that's where the hockey players, like they have family and guests. That's where they hang out.
And I think it's also the sort of pre-press room for the hockey.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because right by there, there's the Montreal Canadiens press room, and I think the journalists hang out there.
If you walk out of that room, you're in that hallway, and you make a left, and the staircase to go into the press room
is right there.
So that would make sense.
So I think that's where the press hangs out, but. It's a nice room to hang out, but it's not a nice room to record an interview, especially one that had video content because there's no lighting in it. And all the walls are beige, so it's just bland.
Well, do you remember? So Henry and I, honestly, I love the radio station and stuff, but they give us the most minimal equipment possible.
I believe it was called Your iPhone.
Yeah. Well, I always bring my own recording stuff just in case, because being there, you kind of got to improvise, and I like a little bit better quality. So we went into that room and we set up our camera. We didn't have any lights or anything, and it was super dimly lit. And I was laughing at the iHeartRadio people, not like the brand, but like the radio stations that were there doing the interview. So they're over there set up. They have their lighting set up and everything. And Jody, his sound guy, comes in and he's like, okay, hey, Jeremy, your setup looks great. Awesome. He's going to love this. And then they go over to the other radio stations and they're like, oh, yeah, I don't know how he's going to feel about this. Well, I guess we'll see when he gets here. So then all of a sudden we're just sitting there shooting the shit, and Bryan Adams just walks in and he's like, oh, hey guys, how are you? Looks at our setup. He's like, oh, this is cool. And then he walked over to them. And do you remember this? Uh-huh. He looked into their lens and he's trying to set their ISO on the camera, get good lighting settings and stuff.
Yeah, because Bryan Adams is a photographer.
Yeah, he's a brilliant photographer.
A professional, published photographer.
Yeah. Yes. So he's looking at all the settings and he just basically says, yeah, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Jody, is the stage ready? And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay, let's go do it on the stage. I'm just going to go change. I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. So then we're sitting there, and he's like, okay, so we're going to go to the stage? And you and I both look at each other. We're like,
wow.
Well, okay. All right. We'll go to the stage.
Yeah. I mean, so you're doing this interview, and it's funny.
Well, dude, we were chilling on the stage for a good 10, 15 minutes waiting for. We were just hanging out on an empty stage in an empty Bell Center.
At the Bell Center.
And it was just us.
And we got some great pictures with the entire, seats behind us. It looks great.
Yeah.
It looks great, and it was so unexpected and so nice to see that rather than pulling off something, well, I don't get the lighting I want, so screw this.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's like, all right, we'll just make other arrangements, better arrangements.
And it was fantastic. And that's I think that's my favorite interview I've ever done. I might have to replay that on the podcast because...
certainly setting-wise, it was one of the best ones.
Yeah. So it's nice to have the home studio and stuff, and here we are recording in the backyard at your house for the first episode
with the dog running out.
Fuck the TVs and my lighting and everything.
Black flies all over my head.
I got spiders crawling on me.
Welcome to nature.
High production value for the first episode.
And I'll finish on Bryan Adams real quick. Of course, those 2 Billy Idol shows with Bryan Adams. I saw 2. You saw 1.
Yeah.
You just don't realize the amount of hits those 2 guys have because it was essentially 3.5 hours of top 40.
Yes, and the funny
Even
thing
top
is,
20.
I mentioned to him in the interview. I said, back in the day when these songs were coming out, there was a fine line between a rock band and new wave and pop, and you were proper top 40. Mm-hmm. Whereas today, top 40 radio wouldn't touch you because there's guitars in it. Like the radio station I work at, we don't touch anything with guitars. We're afraid of it, But it makes sense to me. The format and the way they test the music. There's a reason why the beat is number 1.
Right.
So
yeah, they're doing something right.
Yes, 1,000%. So, we were talking about that, and I also said how everything old is new again. And when you listen to the music we play on the beat, like you listen to Dua Lipa's new album and The Weeknd.
Or like I call her, Dia Lupa.
Yeah, you always mess that up. Weren't we backstage and you said that to her publicist or something?
Probably.
Like Oshiaga. You're like, yeah, so. Oh, you work with Dia Lupa. I love her. And her face is like, yes. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Yes.
Yeah.
I did see her show once. It was fantastic.
She's awesome.
She is an entertainer.
The dog is debating if he wants to go inside or not.
The dog is stressing us out here.
He's all right. Whatever.
Every so often he runs after a rabbit, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, anyways, back to the whole thing. Man, we're all over the place. Look at the beauty of a podcast. See, I'd be on the radio. I'm in and out from 45 seconds to 90 seconds. So
right.
I have to have my thoughts completely well thought out beforehand, but with a little bit of room for improvisation. Whereas here, we just touched on 7 different topics. And
listen, on a radio station, you've also got to get in the ads, and you've got to get in.
It's a whole thing.
It's 25 degrees outside, and your kids at school. It's just like, oh.
Perfect time to talk about our sponsor, Resources Illimité, located in Chateauguay. They provided us with the stickers for my mic cubes.
Oh, yes. I used to have mic cubes.
I messaged Erica at RI in Chateauguay, and I said, Erica, I need some stickers for my mic cubes. I'm doing an interview. So I sent her the artwork. They turned it around right away, sent me the proof, got it done, and they charged me so little that they're honestly the best. And I just had a couple of posters made because at the radio station we have those posters on the it's like a foam board.
Yeah.
I have every
press
single
board. No, it's not a press board.
It's almost like science fair board.
Right.
So anyway, I've collected every single one from being at the radio station since, and I just got my new artwork printed on a new poster. So they did it for me, and they did a great job. So any type of printing, dude, they do all the textbooks and stuff for the government exams and all that.
Oh, really?
RI, yeah.
Listen, my kid's in high school. He might need a couple of
That's what I was thinking.
Advanced copies.
So, anyways, Resources Illimité in Chateauguay. Anyways, well, we're coming up to 20 minutes here. If you're still listening, you probably made it to your wherever you were going and then some.
Yeah.
So,
on
your podcast, how long do you usually make your first segment before you go into an interview?
I try to keep my first segment to about 10 or less.
Okay.
Just because I'm a real lazy editor and I don't want to edit 20 minutes.
Well, this I'm not going to edit at all. I'm just going to leave it in. So.
No, I like to do about 10 because I find that the rock fans that listen to a show with an older host and an older, clientele in terms of guests.
Yeah.
They just want to get to the rock star. They want to hear the Ace Frehleys or the Sammy Hagars they just want to hear those guys.
Right.
So Alan Niven, who of course managed Guns N' Roses, and we do our little talk up and we do our little spiel, but really it's like don't bore us, get to the chorus, and the guest is the chorus. So,
which makes sense.
Yeah, and 10 minutes is enough. Listen, I've been doing during the COVID times 3 shows a week,
which is a lot because you have to book 3 separate guests.
Right.
You have to edit 3 separate interviews. Right. People think it's just, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to talk into my phone and I'm going to get my voice out there.
Because all the behind the scenes of the dealing with publicists and record companies and all that. But when you think about it, though, Alan and I are doing 10 to 12 minutes per episode. So you're looking at 30, 35, 40 minutes of content.
Right.
So the talk-ups are 10 minutes, but in a week it's about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing.
Well, I've already talked more than I have on the air. on the radio
last
station
year.
in the last year on the podcast. Oh, and my bosses are going to hear this first episode. They're going to be like, that Jeremy, that damn Jeremy.
That's a gig I can handle. Just talk every 5 seconds.
Oh, I love it.
It's 25 and sunny.
But you know what? It's honestly not that simple though, because
no, it's not.
It's really, there's a real like art form that goes to like what I do. Okay, what Cat Spencer does on afternoons, like on the Beat Sign cassette, the man is an absolute freaking legend. Like I listen to him every afternoon driving into the radio station just to see what's going on. But they always have a topic. The topic's well thought out. They have callers. They have people texting in to join the conversation. It's almost like a talk show, but playing music.
Are you just stealing his content? That's really what you're doing.
No, but you know what? I wouldn't be able to pull it off because I don't have the talk time.
Right.
So, you know, like what I do, hopping on, sure, I complain, oh, I don't get to talk, but there's a real art form to hopping in and hopping off for 7 to 14 seconds. You know, if I have to try and sell to the audience, oh, you could win so-and-so tomorrow or win tickets to XX concert or, you know, and I have to mention it 4 times a show, 5 days a week, well, I have to come up with a different way of selling that every single time.
Different pitch.
Within the time constraints that I'm afforded. So...
And that's where you build a respect for the morning guy, because the morning guy's spiel is completely different.
Well, yeah.
Different audience. He has to engage the audience differently, and you go, wow, now I understand why the whatever guy or the, you know, Howard Stern or the whoever, and you go, wow, okay, that's a talent.
Well, that's it. So I think this podcast is almost going to be sort of like a soft audition for a radio morning show at some point.
Well, you should be.
See if I can talk.
You should be. I mean, hey, why not? The 1 to 5 slot is taken, so.
Well, that's it. Yeah, congrats to the girl, you know, Megan Kelly.
Yeah.
Shout out to her, you know.
Shout out to Megan.
So I guess the basis of the podcast is basically going to be me just trying to talk and figure things out as we go along. I mean, we started this episode with nothing in mind. We just said, all right, here we go. We're going to push record. And
I think we ended with nothing either.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we ended up with great content. The cicadas or whatever you call them.
The crickets.
The crickets are happy. No, and the dog didn't run after a skunk, which I'm happy about.
Yeah. No, it's a squirrel. You're okay.
No, squirrels he can chase all day long.
Yeah, there we go.
And there he goes.
Anyways, all right. Well, there's the first portion of the first podcast episode. There you go.
And so let me just say, I wish you well in this endeavor.
Thank you, sir. Well, you're going to be on more episodes.
It is not just, as you say, turn on the mic and interview whoever. A lot of podcasts, they start off, they go, oh, I want to interview rock stars. I'll just start a podcast. And 2 episodes later with the horrible audio, you go,
yeah,
God, there is some work and talent required.
Getting ready to do this podcast, I listen to so many different podcasts. Like I would text you like, yo, I just listened to so-and-so's podcast. Oh my God, dreadful. Yeah. Like from the audio quality to the, you know, I'm a radio guy.
Questions to the pacing,
just
everything.
And I'm a radio guy, right? So I have, you know, production value that I want to bring to the table, and when I hear certain things, and you know, with the sound design and all that stuff, and so yeah, it's I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, it'll be good.
All right. Well,
there you go.
We're going to get over to our first guest next. All right. Stay there.
The Jeremy White Podcast. The Jeremy White Podcast.
The Jeremy White Podcast.
We are moments away from chatting with one of the greatest guitar players of all time. It's the Jeremy White Podcast with tasty, garlicky boustan, the best Lebanese cuisine in the Montreal area. If you haven't had boustan yet, I'm telling you, you are so missing out. I recommend the chicken trio, just garlic and coleslaw. Ask them to throw some potatoes on your pita. Life-changing. Visit boustan.ca. They got over 24 locations around the Montreal area. You need to absolutely go. I also heard a rumor that they may be opening up some locations outside of the Montreal area. You have to look out for details on that. boustan.ca. Thanks a lot for hanging out and coming on board with the Jeremy White Podcast. This guy is a Grammy Award-winning, absolutely legendary guitar player to come out of the 80s. He's still on top of his game. Just finished up a big tour with Billy Idol last summer and Bryan Adams, which we just finished talking about in the earlier portion of the podcast. Very excited to welcome as my first guest ever from the Billy Idol band, the one, the only, Steve Stevens.
Right on,
What's
man.
going on?
Good to see you.
Mitch Lafon is like my mentor. He's like one of my best friends.
Yeah.
So I told him, he's like, you need to come up with a slogan, because at the beginning of his podcast, he always says, bienvenue, as we say in Montreal, bonjour, comment ça va?
Okay. Right, yeah. Is that where you are?
I'm in Montreal.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but I'm actually from a native reservation. So I'm a Mohawk from Kahnawake, which I'm going to talk to you about that. So I was thinking about going with like a Mohawk, saying like, "What's gonna wordado? Sego.
That'll work.
I don't think anybody will be able to repeat it back to me though. So
that's all right. That's good.
Because I'm from Montreal, so our reservation's like 15 minutes from downtown Montreal. Like we're right on. So the town is called Kahnawake. And in English, it translates to by the rapids. So we're right on the St. Lawrence Rapids.
Okay. Gotcha.
And a lot of our family actually is, we have like a bit of a Brooklyn connection, because my great-grandmother, she moved to Brooklyn when she was 16. And my grandmother was born and raised in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Do you know what part?
Yeah, she State and Bond.
Where is that?
It's just off Atlantic, like not too far, 365 State Street.
Okay.
Yeah. My great grandfather was a vet. She met him at Atlantic Bar and Atlantic Avenue, and served the family down there. And yeah. So when you were growing up, did you know any Indians? Did you hang out with any Mohawks over there? Because
not in New York. The only thing I knew was that Broadway was originally an Indian trail.
Yeah.
We learned that in grade school.
Yeah, we gave it away for like 2 matchsticks.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it must be beautiful where you are.
Yeah, well, we're like one of the more fortunate towns. Like if you go up to, in northern Canada where the other reservations are, man, it's just terrible. Like third world country level kind of crap. Dude, it's bad. Like no running water. There's no electricity.
Oh, geez.
Like the alcohol. That's where like when you hear about like drunken Indian and stuff, like in northern Canada, like it's terrible living conditions. And, like a case of bottled water up north is like $300 for a pack of 24 or something. Like they mark up the prices, and the thing is that they have no money to buy this shit. So it's like,
right.
It's crazy. So if you ever
actually,
interested.
I have a chiropractor healer he actually flies. This dude is so special. He's from Quebec. He lives there.
Okay.
And he flies in to Los Angeles once a month to see his clients and stuff.
Oh,
so
that's cool. Natural healers. You can't beat that.
Yeah. Well, he does chiropractic and a little bit of energy work and all. Us guitar players, we have bad backs.
Yeah. I'm surprised you're not hunched over at this point.
Oh man, yeah. We all complain when we meet new guitar players. We go, "Hey, great! I'm a real fan. How's your back?"
You're popping the Aleve and getting a rub of Voltaren before you go on stage, and
yeah, it's common.
Talking about your guitar playing. Just again, I've been listening to a lot of the first 2 Billy Idol albums lately, and because you and we met last year on the Bryan Adams tour, just super briefly backstage, right. And that's kind of like where we connected, and so I started listening to those 2 first albums a lot, and I want to talk about those, just specifically about your guitar playing, on the you go from Billy, who has his roots in a lot of punk rock. Right. And then, you were kind of more like, didn't you only get your first electric guitar when you were 13? You were playing acoustic?
I did. My dad brought a guitar home for himself when I wasn't even 7 years old yet. But he didn't have the time to put into it. He was blue collar worker, got home, barely had time, he barely had enough energy to eat dinner. And, so the guitar ended up in my bedroom. And, and this was the time of, folk. The folk scene was really popular. James Taylor, right. Joni Mitchell, all of this. And in my neighborhood, although I was born in Brooklyn, I was raised in Queens and Rockaway. There's my Indian connection. Rockaway is Indian. So there was a very famous protest singer from Rockaway named Phil Oakes. And his sister was my first guitar teacher. So I spent all those years playing, a lot of, folk and a little bit of country guitar. And then 13, I got an electric guitar.
So do you think that when it came to recording those albums, not having necessarily just that straight up, 3 chords and the truth kind of background, you were playing real kind of, if you're going to play classical and folky, you're doing a lot of finger stuff and you're doing a lot of kind of expanded chords, and it's almost like orchestrating different parts, but within the same kind of finger arrangement. You know what I mean? So when you went to record those albums, because I listened to that second Billy Idol album, and there's so much going on in the guitar realm that I don't think anybody really talks to you about, because, you know, at the time you had Pyromania that came out in January.
Right.
And then you had Billy Idol Rebel Yell that came out, November, I think, of 83?
That's right. Yeah, November.
So at the time, in my mind, the only people that were doing really cool orchestrated guitar parts like that was Def Leppard and you.
Yeah, I mean, this was, you know, we started recording that record in late 83, and, you know, keyboards were all the rage. It was new wave and all this kind of stuff. And I was not going to let keyboards on the record. So I had to be inventive with my guitar stuff. And I made a deal with our producer, Keith Forsey. I said, let me try and do on the guitar what we would imagine a keyboard doing. And if it sucks, you know, no harm done. Then bring in the keyboards.
Just wipe the tape and we'll do it again.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it gave the record a kind of a unique edge because a lot of the guitar stuff was, you know, more than just a heavy rock thing or whatever. And, you know, it was really the sum of the parts. Billy, obviously coming from the punk rock thing in London, started at the same time as the Sex Pistols with Generation X.
Yeah.
Our producer, Keith, had worked with Giorgio Moroder and did those Donna Summers records. So he's like a dance disco guy.
So you got influences from all over the place.
Exactly. And we all brought our specialties, I think. And, you know, not only did I have the folk thing, but I was learning electric guitar at the height of the English rock guitar guys like Brian May, and, you know, Zeppelin was going, and The Who, and all this stuff. So I had all this kind of, you know, it was a great time to pick up the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, especially, you know, so you grew up listening to those kind of bands, like you grew up listening to Zeppelin and the Queen. So those were your influences.
Right. Anything out of England. There was a WNEW in New York had a show every Friday called Things from England. And it's funny, it had such an impact on me because I'd listen. It was a 2-hour show. I'd listen and then go to the department store and buy these English imports. And I've recently heard Paul Stanley talk about exactly that. He was listening to that same show and getting all the English imports and stuff. So it's really influential on us New York kids at that time.
Was the Raspberries an English band? Or were they American?
American.
Yeah, they were American.
But so inspired by
UK.
You know, a lot of Beatles and, you know, kind of Zombies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I want to talking about your guitar work on those albums. You know, you were one of the first to kind of have a really, really processed guitar sound, in the sense, like, you know, you listen to, everybody talks about Eddie Van Halen and his use of delays on like Cathedral and stuff. But you listen to some of those clean tones that you're doing with like the nice chorus and like there's a lot of delay going on in there. Where did you get the idea for all those guitar tones that you were using?
I mean, it was, you know, Rebel Yell was done in Electric Lady Hendrix studio.
Yeah.
And back then, you know, this was the days of big budget albums. So we had Lockout. So I was so inspired, man. I mean, you know, I grew up in New York, and as a kid, I used to go to the movie theater next to Electric Lady, you know, to see Kids Are All Right or a rock film or whatever. They had the all-night rock. And here I am, I'm in the damn studio, and I never left the place. And I just like, me and the engineer, just like, we had a field day. And a lot of the effects and things that were coming out then were all new. And it was an exciting time for gear.
So what was the main? What was the main amp that you used on that album? Because it almost sounds like, are you using like a Rockman on there, or
a couple of tracks of Rockman? Not that I, you know, what happened was we actually recorded a lot of the tracks before we had a real drummer.
Because it's a lot of Lindrum on that album, right?
Right. So we were looking for a drummer. So some of the guitar tracks, Blue Highway, was done with a Rockman. I always said I wanted to replace it, but
it sounds great. Why would you do that?
I mean, I guess you know, it is of the time. You know, it is. You know, now I look at it and go, yeah, I guess it's okay. But at the time, but the main guitar amp was one that I had since the band I was in before Billy Idol. I used to build pedal boards for guys, and one of the guys gave me this vintage amp, and actually had Jim Marshall's signature on the inside of the cabinet. So it was a early 70s. I got lucky. I got this amp, and I still have it, still record with it.
Nice.
And it's a little good luck charm.
Yeah. I mean, that it doesn't get more legit than that. You got the man's signature inside it.
Yeah.
You know? So you did use a Rockman on a couple of those tracks, but I'm listening to the guitar arrangements on the album though, because there's a lot going on and it's you. And as soon as I hear it, like I hear you. Like that is how you sound and that's your tone. And you said that you wanted to replace the Rockman sound. But what's in my mind, a lot of people talk about modern sounding records. And I think every rock band that puts out an album now, it all sounds the same. They're all using the same drum plugins. They're all using the same virtual amps. Everything sounds the same. So when you hear a classic album like that and that classic guitar tone, I think it's awesome that it has a distinctive, recognizable sound right away.
Yeah, I mean, this was the days of guitar players had to find a unique voice, and all of those, and hopefully I'm one of those guys who you strive to be able to play 3 notes and people go, I know who that. I mean, whether you think Neil Young is brilliant or crap, you hear 3 notes of him. I think he's brilliant, but you hear 3 notes and you go, that's Neil Young. Right. And that's same with Kurt Cobain, not terribly technique savvy, but it's him. And I think that's the most important thing. It goes for singers as well. Sometimes, singer may not have the greatest range or greatest pitch, but I mean, Dylan is the perfect example, or Hendrix. They're not trained singers, but it's them and it's the emotion behind it.
As soon as you hear "Please," it's Jimmy.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Jimmy.
He was very shy about his singing. He was not a fan of his own voice, but could you imagine anybody else singing that? No,
not at all. And it would be weird to hear somebody else actually singing it.
Yeah,
that should be one band that should never be covered ever. Hendrix.
It's a hard one to do. Yeah. Although Stevie Ray Vaughan did justice.
Stevie, man, the guitar player on that guy. It was interesting that you'd bring up Stevie Ray Vaughan. In the 80s, was he considered a good guitar player?
Oh yeah. It's funny.
Or was it just like in like the guitar circles? Everybody's like, oh, Stevie Ray Vaughan. But like in the general mass population, was he a guitar hero?
Yeah, I mean that record when the first thing we heard from him was obviously David Bowie, and they were recording. New York was at that time in the early 80s was a real close-knit thing of everybody knew, all these studios happening and everybody knew what was going on. And we heard word that Bowie's got a hot guitar player, working with him. Like, ooh, who is this guy? Nobody really knew who he was. And then I guess Let's Dance was the first single off that. Yeah. I went, oh, that's the guy.
Right. You just hear that clean tone.
I mean, it was pretty obvious from the get-go that he was somebody to be reckoned with.
And then you hear stuff like Pride and Joy and that rhythm.
Oh my God,
man.
Yeah.
Incredible. We have a guitar player here in my town. His name's Donnie Breezebois, and the dude plays exactly like Stevie. It's insane. Yeah. And it's all in that rhythm. It's all in the handwork, and be able to go from the chord and then into the solo and then go back. It's such a technique.
And it's an undefinable thing between the lines are blurred with guys like that between rhythm and lead, like Hendrix.
Yeah,
they just meld it all together, and it's great when they can do that. There's not many guys who can pull that off.
Yeah, exactly. You don't hear him using a super processed tone with tons of delay, though.
No.
Oh man, that's crazy. I just love stuff like that because it's interesting to see like just the differences between certain genres and certain players at the same time and see what they were considered to be a guitar god or not.
Right.
Whereas we look back now and it's like, holy shit, that was some really good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was making records at that point. It was. I think maybe because I was in New York, I was away from the kind of LA, I loved Van Halen. I was aware of Eddie and all that stuff, but I was away from all the other guys who kind of were in the wake of, everybody wanted to sound like Van Halen if they were from LA or what. But in New York, it wasn't as big a thing. And we still had the kind of street we still loved Kiss and New York Dolls.
Yeah.
And all
Well,
of
New
our
York is a very, punk town, everything from the
Right.
Dictators to,
Exactly.
Danzig and the
Exactly.
Misfits.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that bonded Billy and I, because when we first met, here's this punk rock guy, and here's me, kind of influenced by a lot of the bands that punk was not, was kind of like breaking down.
Yeah.
But we bonded over Lou Reed because I knew all those Lou Reed songs and stuff. So
Nice.
that was kind of, okay, I see some common ground here.
Yeah. Have you talked to Billy lately? I know his mom just passed away. My condolences to the whole crew.
Yeah, yeah, she passed away last week. But he's now a grandfather, and I think that's kind of, he's spending a lot of time with his granddaughter, and I think it's good therapy for him.
Yeah, keeps you together. I just lost my uncle like 2 weeks ago to cancer, and it's just like, it's such a weird year, man. It's like
yeah,
all kinds of crap.
And, here in the States, you can't even really travel to to go see people because of the COVID thing.
Well, that's it. It's like, and how do you even go to a funeral? It's like, it's just a weird situation. So where are you? Are you in, you're on the West Coast?
I'm in LA. Yeah, I've
LA.
lived here for about 26 years.
Nice. Where's Billy live? Is he in the UK?
In LA, yeah.
In LA
Yeah.
too? Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
You guys see each other often? Are you guys working on some new music?
We are. We've been in this. I mean, we finished in Vegas. We do our Vegas run, and we finished in March. I think we were actually the last live band that ran. We stopped doing the meet and greets when, and we finished our last two shows, and then we both went into isolation, and then we, about a month after that, we got tested and said, all right, let's write some music.
Nice.
So we've been writing and still I mean, that's what we do. And
I guess that's all you can do. You're musicians at the end of the day.
I mean, to be honest with you, not that much has changed for me other than not being able to go out and play. But I have a home studio. I'm in here anyway.
Yeah.
So
you got your whole guitar rig there. You're sorted.
That's exactly it. So it's I mean, my wife pulling her hair out because she's an outdoors person, but I'm a studio rat. It's like, okay, I'll just work.
You're like, yeah, if I don't have to go out, I'm staying behind the console. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, or I always either practicing, playing guitar, or writing, or something in here.
What are you using in your home studio? Like, I guess you're running Pro Tools, obviously. Were you like one of the first guys to have a home studio and kind of embrace the Pro Tools thing, or?
No, but that was a deciding factor in me moving to LA from New York. I met Duff McKagan, and he had a home studio, a really beautiful home studio. You can't have that in New York. And I went, I see what I could do here.
It's impossible to have anything in New York. You can't even, you're living on top of 4 other people if you want to eat.
Man, you'd pay more for parking to keep a parking spot than you would for a house. So, so I moved out here and put together a home studio, and it's, I have an analog board here. I'm still old school. I'm not doing EDM here. So it's guitar based. It's I have everything at my disposal that I would need. And,
nice.
And it's just a little playpen, really.
Yeah, totally. So is that guitar rig that's behind you? Is that the one that you bring on the road with you, or is that just exclusively for the studio?
No, this is studio stuff. Yeah, the mic pre's and all that stuff. Actually, just on the last run in Vegas, I had stuff is getting smaller now, because as you're traveling, your road manager's going, how much this stuff weighs to bring it to Europe and put it on a boat. And so I had just gotten a new guitar rig I was really happy with that was much smaller. And I was really looking forward to. I got 2 gigs out of it.
2 gigs? That's it. Damn it! It's not worth it. Not worth the money.
We did 2 gigs, and it was great. I was like, okay.
Was it just like a little lunch, like one of the fractal things, or?
No, I'm still using. I have a signature amp out with Friedman. I'm still using regular tube amps, speaker cabinets. But I used to, I was one of those 80s guys that had that huge refrigerator rack full of effects and stuff. And you needed it. I mean, in order to replicate some of those records back then, you needed all that gear, but now you can do it in a much smaller, there's one box that'll do everything now.
Yeah, a lot of it is just one rack mount thing, or a multi-effects pedal board, and you're golden.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I saw on your Instagram that you're doing a bunch of signature guitar patches too.
Signature what?
Are you doing like guitar patches? Like selling your are you designing tones and then selling them too?
Oh no, I haven't done that yet.
No?
No, haven't. I'm thinking about it, but we haven't done that. What happened was, in Rebel Yell, I'm well known for the ray gun effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Of course.
So so those things, the ones that I use, I doctor them and I open them up and put little rate controls in them, and they were getting harder and harder to find, and I'd be breaking them on the road. Actually, a girl jumped up on the stage after our London gig and stole one. We had to track her down through the promoter and find it.
Oh shit!
So
it's a hot item. It's hotter than the merch booth.
It's like I tell my guitar tech, guard that with your life. But I came across about 25 of these units from the 70s,
like the original thing.
The ones that I doctor like on stage.
Wow.
So I made them available to fans who want to buy them. So we sold out in like a day.
Oh man! So you're doctoring. So what are you doing to modify it? Like
it's a secret, man. I'd have to tell you, it's a secret.
Well, if you told me, I'd know, wouldn't I? Talking about that ray gun sound. Like I said, I was just recently listening to all those albums again. That ray gun sound on the album, it's a very fat sound to it. It doesn't just sound like the little speaker coming out of the ray gun. Like it's got like a bottom end to it as well. How did you get that sound?
Well, back then there was a company called Lexicon that had a really good digital delay. Every guitar player used them.
Everyone needed a Lexicon.
Still uses them, and they still sound really good. So we'd use the ray gun. I had this toy ray gun. That's kind of how I stumbled across it. And then I'd step on the pedal at the same time, and it would make this oscillating sound. I blew speakers doing it, but the end result was kind of worth it,
Hey, if you didn't blow one speaker when you're recording something revolutionary, I mean,
try 4.
4 even. Jeez. How do you think that sound would have went over in 2020? Had you done that on a new single, let's say Rebel Yell came out today. Right. What do you think the world would have thought of it, and how do you think it would have been received?
Who knows? I mean, it's so different now. And also we had that.
But at the end of the day, isn't a good song a good song?
Yeah, but we had a platform for it,
right?
With MTV, and that live video of Rebel Yell really permeated the masses. And when we went out on tour, the audiences wanted to replicate what the audience was doing in the video. So it telegraphed something about how, because when we started that tour, we were still playing clubs and eventually went to arenas. And that was the record that broke the Billy Idol. But those videos were really in everybody's, home.
Yeah, in everybody's house. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, I guess MTV and radio is really the platform for you to become famous.
But I'm proud to say, even if I'm driving and I hear Rebel Yell come on, it still sounds good.
I personally don't think it sounds dated at all. I mean, you mentioned that the guitar tone might be a little dated in a sense, but I was listening to our local rock station, and they were playing a new song from this new band. But then they played another one from a new band, and then another one from a new band. And everybody is going back to this organic kind of 70s-ish homage kind of production. But if you listen to the pop radio, everybody's doing the 80s thing. You listen to The Weeknd, you listen to Dua Lipa, everybody's going back to.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what do you think it is about the rock scene that everybody's sort of afraid to go back to those processed drums and big guitars and, cannonball snares? Like, what's the stigma around the music that people are...
Well, Billy Idol has always had one foot in rock and one foot in pop.
Yeah.
And,
you listen to those attitude. You listen to those first two.
Yeah, we were definitely trying to create singles and memorable tunes. A lot of the tunes were... why should we put a guitar solo on it? Is there a reason for it? And if there is going to be a guitar solo, it better reflect the message of the song rather than just for the sake of putting a guitar solo on it.
Right. No, that makes total sense, and that's kind of like the Mutt Lange approach at the same time as well.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
and it's interesting that you would say Mutt, because both Mutt and Keith Forsey, Keith being a drummer, the attention to detail, and sometimes drove me crazy because you had to lock into the groove. And us, like Def Leppard, we were recording to a grid, to a click.
right?
And a lot of rock records back then weren't.
No.
So we were able to do edits and extended dance remixes like Def Leppard did, whereas a lot of the rock bands from there, they didn't think about any of that sort of stuff.
Not at all. And I mentioned that because, you know, you listen to Rebel Yell and then you listen to Pyromania, and it's kind of got the same kind of, you know, production aspect to it as at the same time.
Yeah, the attention to detail and groove.
It's got so much groove.
Yeah, the underneath groove is you know, that was always the thing. Get the motor and the cement and the foundation solid, and then you can build on it.
Yeah.
You know, no slop.
When you were doing that album, you know, a lot of it was the Lindrum. So would you have a drum pattern and then you'd play to that, or did you have a riff, or, you know, you listen to something like Daytime Drama or something, you know,
Well, on Rebel Yell, Keith Forsey did all the Lindrum programming.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was brilliant at it. He was an early adoptee of it. And so we kind of knew which songs needed the real drums, Rebel Yell, real drums, Blue Highway, real drums. But things like Flesh for Fantasy, you know, obviously needed a perfect drum, dance drum thing to it.
Needed that sequencing
so the songs
to it.
Needed it. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. I like it. You know, I like stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I've always liked, you know, there's no rules, man. There's no, you know, you try stuff and see if it works. And half of the, you know, what I always tell guitar players, you know, budding guitar players are, you know, doing these online classes for Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp now.
Right.
And I tell people it's not really what you know, it's the mistakes that you make so that you don't do that again.
No, totally.
That's how you get knowledge. You have to screw up to know what to do. And we screwed up a lot, man.
Hey, it's trial and error at the end of the day. You can't innovate without making some mistakes.
And sometimes those mistakes are what make things you stumble upon. We always said the beautiful mistake. You stumble upon something and you go, that's the hook. And you go, what? And they go, roll the tape back. What? Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. Do that again.
And they're like, oh, it wasn't recorded. Damn it.
Right, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, appreciate taking some time to chat with you. I don't want to take up your whole day, but...
It's my pleasure. Absolutely. I think we both share a love of both, you know, modern pop records and rock, and, you know, always look at...
What is your wife into? Like, what does she listen to on, if she, you know, she's hanging out around the house or whatever, you know, she's giddy, she doesn't know what to do with herself, and, you know, she's got some music on in the background. Like, what's she listening to?
Well, she grew up as a metal kid. She used to go to, like, see Deicide and, you know, Slayer and all this. But now she's all about, she likes the Beyonce and you know, she likes modern records, which is great for me because she'll play me something or I'll hear it. Yeah. I'll go, oh, that's cool. That's, you know, it's a good hook or something. Because, you know, good song, like you said, good song's a good song.
Yeah.
And you have to have something that's memorable. And I think there's a lot of cool sounds on modern pop records.
Yeah,
and
there is.
And you know, if I can adopt some of those things, because the listeners are used to this huge bandwidth because of, you know, pop records have tons of bottom end, and, you know, they're great. Production on those records is great.
I mean, it's next level. If you listen to the new album from The Weeknd or Dua Lipa, you know, Dua Lipa, and like I was saying, like, everything old is new again in the sense that you listen to the pop side and, you know, The Weeknd and his album, it's super 80s. And then you listen to Dua Lipa. You know,
a lot of that influence.
Yeah, she just sampled In Excess, Need You Tonight, that bow, 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 like that whole part. And she took that and used it as the hook of her song. It's a number one on pop radio.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that because that's an awesome hook.
It's called Break My Heart by Dua Lipa, and it's fantastic.
Okay, check it out. Yeah.
So are you going to be taking some influences from the modern pop stuff and throwing it on a Billy Idol song?
It's sonically, yeah. Some of the stuff we're working on is sonically. I can't say who we're working with as a producer right now, but he's definitely somebody who's making those records.
You're not working with Max Martin, are you?
No. He's a rock and roll guy, but he makes modern records, and the combination is great. I wish I could say, but I got to keep it in the can right now.
Trying to think who it is. Is it Watt? Andrew Watt?
What's that?
Is it Andrew Watt?
No, it's not. No. Although we would.
I'm going to keep throwing names out there. Oh, Watt is amazing. What he did with Ozzy, phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you think of that Ozzy album? Did you listen to it?
I mean, sonically is great, and it's. I mean, come on. Anytime you get to hear a new Ozzy record is awesome. I'm a huge fan of Zach and all that. And love that, but. It's not that kind of record, but it is a really good record, and some of the ballad stuff on there is awesome, and it's great.
I like that record because it's a big production. I'm a fan of big production. Like I said, I was listening to this new band and their sound. It sounds like a record from 1974, and I'm like, okay, that was cool in 1974, but it's 2020. Right. Why are you making it sound like crap? Make it sound big. Instead of these 4 mics on the drums, do something good with it.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, man. Well, I know you're available on Cameo and stuff, so people can book you on Cameo, get your birthday messages and all that. And I also like the fact that your prices aren't like super cheap. You're not taking advantage of your fans.
No, and a lot of people are asking. I'm getting a lot of guitar players who have a question about a song. Now, I'm not doing lessons on there, but I will show you a bit. And if they're specific and say, how do you do the second part of that? I have no problem showing people, if I can pass on a little knowledge. So,
hey, Steve, can you show me the jangle part in Daytime Drama?
I'm getting all of that. It's fine, man. It's all good. Cool. If I could have done that and asked Jimmy Page, in the Rain song, the third chord, what the hell is it?
Imagine.
I would have been all about that. Yeah, I would have been all about it.
That's nuts. All right, Steve. Well, thanks a lot for taking some time to chat. So, new music from Billy Idol in 2021. Can we expect it?
Maybe even sooner.
Ooh, like late 2020? Possibly. Like put it in my stocking, or?
Yeah, right. That's maybe, man. Right. We're buzzing along.
Good. I'm excited about that. That's cool.
Great.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for chatting, and we'll catch up, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.
The Jeremy White Podcast. The Jeremy White Podcast.
All right. There you go. Can't believe it. Episode 1 of the Jeremy White Podcast in the can. Wow. So this is what it's like being a podcaster. Crazy stuff. Hey, appreciate you hanging out. And if you got this far into the podcast, well, you are an absolute trooper. I'm going to have to start coming up with a name for my fan base. Is it the Jeremy Army? No, that's the Kiss Army. Am I the Rock Brigade? Oh, no. That's the Def Leppard fan club. No. I'm going to have to come up with something creative. If you have any ideas, you're going to have to hit me up. Also, I plan on printing t-shirts with the artwork on it. Thanks a lot to Claudio Bergaman. I'm going to try and talk to him in a couple of episodes and talk about what it was like trying to design an album cover for me. I'm pretty easy to work with, but I'm also very specific, so it's going to be an interesting conversation. And we'll talk to Mitch next week on the show as well to talk about how he introduced me to Claudio. And anyways, this was really fun. Wow, I can't believe it. Episode 1's already done. Once again, thanks a lot to Boostan for coming on board and sponsoring the show. Over 24 locations around the Montreal area, the best Lebanese cuisine in town. Visit boostan.ca. Also, thanks a lot to Gail, Erica, and Glenn at Resources Illimité in Chateauguay. I got to tell you, Chateauguay, Quebec, they are seriously the best printing shop in the Montreal area. They constantly just come through with whatever I need, like the mic cubes that you saw in the Steve Stevens episode. If you watched the interview on YouTube, the mic cubes were courtesy of Resources Illimité, RI in Chateauguay, Quebec. So shout out to that team over there. Just always do a phenomenal job. That's about it. Who would you like to see on the podcast? If you have any guest ideas or recommendations, any type of feedback, if you got this far and you listened to this far, well, Hey, I should probably send you a gift or something. Anyways, follow me on Instagram, Jeremy White MTL. Also, Jeremy Whitecast. That's the Facebook. No, that's the Twitter and Instagram. So Jeremy Whitecast, if you want to go check that out and give me a like and follow. I'll be posting some content from the podcast up there and stuff. And anyways, yeah, we'll see you at the next episode. We're going to do this every week, Tuesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. The Jeremy White Podcast. Get it wherever you download and stream your podcasts. All right? Thanks for listening. Wow, appreciate it. I don't even want to stop talking. All right, that's it. See you later.
This has been the Jeremy White Podcast.
With Bustan. For the best Lebanese cuisine in Montreal, it's got to be Bustan. Visit bustan.ca.
For exclusive content, video and interviews.
Connect with Jeremy White.
Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and
Available wherever you get your podcasts.